Welcome back to T. Shaw's Progressive Bluegrass. For those of you that have been following my episodes regularly, you know I was just at IBMA, International Bluegrass Music Association, annual trade show, convention, award ceremony, and festival. I fully intended to review my time at IBMA, and the synopsis is it was absolutely outstanding. One of the best weeks of my life. Truly amazing. 24/7 bluegrass in all directions. It was awesome, and I am looking forward to reviewing it and sharing it with you and some of the highlights. But I had a chance to talk to Jesse Cobb of the Unfaithful Servants, formerly the infamous String Dusters, founding member and mandolin player for the infamous String Dusters. Jesse's pretty much been off the radar since his departure from the Dusters in October of 2011, and just decided when I had the opportunity to sit down with Jesse and have a great discussion about what he's up to now, currently, of course, his time with the Dusters, his departure with the Dusters, but just so much to get into that I decided my review of IBMA can wait. So I'm sure you will too after you get a chance to listen to this. So we're just going to jump right in. Here is my interview with Jesse Cobb. It's so good to see you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Trevor.
This is a really exciting moment for me. A lot of my fans know I've been a fan of Jesse Cobb since going all the way back to 2008, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. But we've got a ton to cover, but I want to start. Season 3 has all been IBMA focused leading up to this point. Let's maintain the theme. You and I had a chance to briefly get caught up at IBMA this last week, and you told me this was the first IBMA you've attended since 2008. Tell me what you think of the IBMA experience most recently and its first visit to Chattanooga.
Lots of changes that I wasn't really expecting in the showcasing type of world. 'Cause, it used to kind of be more of a, "Hey, man, you wanna come play in my room? We're doing this showcase," and everything seemed to be planned out well in advance. So I felt like
Gotcha.
I was a little bit, behind the curve on that. Because if you haven't been in over 10 years or so, it's like, I wasn't sure exactly what to expect, but we ended up getting a bunch of showcases. But had I known that they were in hotel rooms, in conference rooms and stuff, I would have probably approached it a little differently. A lot of the same people are still there, which is awesome. It was great to see a bunch of old friends. I liked the Chattanooga thing. It kind of reminded me of Nashville. I never went to Raleigh, so I don't know what that was like. But the Nashville thing, it kind of or the Chattanooga thing, it reminded me of Nashville. It was also central there. It was kind of nice.
You got several showcases. That was my biggest issue with IBMA was the FOMO that you couldn't be everywhere all at once, and there was literally half a dozen options that you would never miss if they were exclusive on your own. I was constantly being pulled. You were here with the Unfaithful Servants, and the Unfaithful Servants, your current project, actually, I think it dates back to 2017. Tell me a little bit about the Unfaithful Servants.
Does. Yeah, 2017, we had a little bit of a head of steam there. We had our original fiddle player and bass player Miriam Sonstenes and Alex Rempel. We were playing kind of some regional festivals here, some of the up in BC, and there's a lot going on. Not a lot in the traditional bluegrass sense, but there's a lot of music festivals, and we kind of got this good head of steam. We made an album in 2017 up in the studio right north of Victoria, and came out to critical acclaim. We got a Western Canadian folk nomination and a Canadian, what was that award? Canadian Acoustic something, Canadian Folk Award nomination. And then COVID happened around 2019, whatever that was, and it just kind of, as happened for everybody, it just kind of everything stopped, right? So we had this kind of good head of momentum going, and then COVID for 3 years basically just shut us down. And we came back. We kind of were trying to pick up the pieces like, hey, let's play some gigs again, because we had all this material that we'd worked on, and we um, we had all this stuff going, and we ended up finding two other players, Quinn Etheridge Pedden on fiddle, young fiddle player who's just amazing, and a bass player named Mark Johnson from Victoria. And we're I feel like we're almost 2 years into that lineup, kind of getting things back going, and we've been doing a little regional stuff, but we want to come down to the States. We want to come down to America. It's our neighbor. It's right there. It's got 10 times the amount of people, and travel's
Well,
easier,
and
and people what we're
most
doing
people probably
more.
don't realize you're in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Yeah, I'm actually in Victoria on Vancouver Island, which makes it even a little more out of the way, right? It's just a island about the size of Tennessee, right off the coast of Vancouver.
Amazing. But yeah, that does make travel very complicated, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, for sure. But it's
Was
just
the
something.
IBMA Unfaithful Servants first visit to the States, or have you done a little bit in the Northwest?
No, that was our first time playing in America, was to the hotbed of bluegrass, man. It was actually kind of cool, right? Like,
Very cool.
it makes it the visa process, which seems to be getting more and more complex, um, makes it really hard for a band to go, like Canadian citizens to go work in the States. It's pretty expensive, and there's a lot of hoops to jump through. For me, being an American citizen, it's easy, but my three bandmates are all Canadian born, and it's not made very easy, and it's not very affordable. So you really got to plan out ahead. You really got to have some stuff that is worth doing. You can't just like, oh, hey, let's go play in Seattle, because that gig at the Tractor Tavern that might pay you $1,000 if you're lucky on a Thursday
Right.
night or
Not even
something.
covering
Well,
one airfare.
yeah, it'll cost you 6 grand to go do that gig, right? So
Oh,
it's kind of crazy.
that does make it a lot more difficult. And beyond that, I mean, you've probably got, when you came to Tennessee, I'm guessing at least 6, maybe more hours of flight time, at least one connection, and then you've got a ferry beyond there. I mean, that is a probably at least a 12-hour day.
It's a strong day. Yeah, we left Victoria at 7 a.m. and we got to Chattanooga. I mean, there's a 3-hour time difference, but we got to Chattanooga at 2:30 a.m. So it was a long day.
Wow. Wow. Well, I know
Yeah.
you're originally from Wisconsin, and you've got a lot of history in the cold states, the cold areas. I apologize, I'm skipping around a lot. There's just so much I want to make sure we hit on.
No
You've got
worries.
an incredibly diverse background before you went to Canada. You've done some, you worked on sled dogs, railroad work,
Uh,
lumberjack. Maybe that's not the correct word, but
we say logger.
logger. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had a lot of life before the music stuff.
I've got to find, bear with me, I should have been a little bit more organized. But one of the greatest quotes I've ever seen comes from you. Best quote I ever heard you say: playing the mandolin is better than logging work because the mortal danger in playing mandolin is considerably lower, unless, of course, you get involved in the what is bluegrass discussion.
I don't remember saying that, but that sounds pretty right on.
Well, how do you go from all these unique categories, careers, and then get into mandolin? Your whole family plays music, does it not? Shad also plays music. Tell me a little bit about that kind of initial background in Wisconsin.
Yeah, the initial background, my dad was from Southern Ohio, around Hamilton, Ohio, which is right across the Kentucky border. Actually played there with the String Dusters years ago. But my dad, when he was younger, he would just, in his words, he would hop across the border to go pick with the briar hoppers from Kentucky all the time. And he just growing up, he did a lot of kind of he was a Jack Kerouac type without the hippiness in it. He was just kind of a railroad bum, and he just rode around on freight trains and played his songs, busked on the street, and did whatever he could to get by. He called himself, what did he call himself? A hooligan. So he was just kind of rambling around the country. He got married. He met my mom in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and they hopped on a freight train like 2 days later, and they rode out to the West Coast and started picking apples. And all throughout all of this, he always had a guitar or a banjo around. Anyway, they started having kids. We moved back and forth from the West Coast to Michigan, and then back to the West Coast, and then back to Wisconsin, back to the West Coast, back to Minnesota, back to the West Coast. And then we finally ended up settling in a little town called Dairyland, Wisconsin. We had an 80-acre subsistence farm. And most of the time we didn't have any. When I was really younger, we didn't have any power, we didn't have TV. We kind of lived like a more of an Amish type of subsistence lifestyle. So our entertainment in the evenings was, we usually had like a house. The house in Wisconsin was open enough, like it was a wood stove heated the whole thing, right? And so our entertainment at night, instead of watching TV, is our mom would all the doors would be open and she would read a book to us. And then our other form of entertainment was playing music. And my older brothers started playing with my dad first. My oldest brother Jed started playing clawhammer banjo, and my dad would play fiddle, and that's what they do. In the evenings we just sit around and play tunes. And then Shad started playing fiddle, and I started playing guitar. My oldest brother took the guitar from me, and the only thing left laying around the house was a mandolin. So that's what I kind of picked up, was
Big
was a
brother wins
mandolin.
out,
So
right?
yeah, well, I mean, he was my older brother. I couldn't take it back. So and that's another in our family, was you get what you take. So that's the way it was. But yeah, I just that was kind of the thing. Like once our work on the farm was done, we had chickens and a milk cow, and we made maple syrup and all sorts of crap. Like we lived a subsistence lifestyle. We didn't spend a lot of money at stores. We didn't go to town very often. We were way out in the sticks. So our entertainment was to sit around and play music in the evenings, and that's what we did. And it was all just like ear. There was no formal education. I think my dad showed me three chords, and then I just started banging along with fiddle tunes that him and Shad and Jed would be playing, and I'd eventually just pick out the melody, and that's the way it went. And to me, it was just like, what the hell else am I gonna do?
So
Because it's
long
either that
before
or read
YouTube,
books.
long before any electronic technology like that, I mean, you literally are self-taught in the most extreme sense of the word.
Pretty much, yeah, yeah. We had later on, when I got a bit older, we ended up having power at the house, and we had records. So we would go to the we would go to the library in Duluth, Minnesota, or Superior, Wisconsin, I guess it would be, right across the border there. We'd go to the library and we'd pick out, we'd rent records from the library, and we'd take those records and slow down the 33s to 16 and a half, and it goes to like half speed and up a half step or whatever it was. So you're retuning and trying to learn these things. And we'd listen to the Grand Old Opry on the radio, and it was old It was even though that was in the 80s and 90s, like that was kind of like living in the 40s in that way, right? Like you're just not having a lot of outside influence. There was like nobody around who played bluegrass. There was kind of just a handful of people in Minnesota, in Duluth, that played bluegrass. And yeah, so a lot of learning from records, big thing was learning from records all by ear.
What a remarkable story. I had no idea. I thought I knew everything about the String Dusters and their past. That's eye opening.
Yeah.
So I've come across Shad before. I didn't realize your bigger brother played as well. Do you have recordings of the brothers playing at all? Is there anything that can be found to the public? Because I bet that's some pretty spectacular stuff at times.
Yes, we actually, as the Cobb Brothers, we made three recordings for a company called Vetco Records in Cincinnati, Ohio. I can't remember the names of those albums, but I still have the, they're on cassette tape, right? So I've got some original copies of the cassette tapes. Their Vetco Records closed down a lot of years ago. It was run by this guy named Lou Ukelson, but John Weisberger was involved in that scene because he's around the Cincinnati area there, or was for a while. So every time I see John Weisberger, we talk about these old Vetco albums of the Cobb Brothers, and he's been a big advocate for re-releasing them in some way. I mean, I listen to the stuff now and it's like, wow, I was like 12, 13 years old doing that. That was pretty cool. I mean, it shows that we're a bunch of kids, like as the music attests, but it's still a pretty cool thing to sit back and listen to. We made some other ones too, but we made three recordings for an actual record label when we were very young, and we just kind of toured regionally, played some festivals around Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Ohio. We'd venture in this little regional space, and yeah, I don't know. We were never all that big, but people sure were excited to see little kids playing the way we did, for sure.
I have had John Weisberger on the episodes in the past or episode in the past, and I will second that would be awesome material to be released to the world. It's got to be just fascinating for the bluegrass enthusiasts currently, but I'm sure the talent coming from that circumstance is just out of this world. Ironically, you also mentioned Dairyland, Wisconsin. I had Adam Gruel on earlier this season. He mentioned he's from Dairyland, Wisconsin. So what are the odds that we've had multiple natives of that town on T. Shaw's Progressive
Gruel is
Bluegrass?
from Dairyland, hey?
Yeah, or
Wow.
at least that's where he was living recently. I can't remember the exact detail. I'd have to go back and listen. That was earlier this season, but great
Yeah,
interview. That a good one to check out if you go through the back episodes.
I will.
Uh
I,
so okay.
I'll give my standard rundown on the background. So, the Cobb Brothers, we were touring and we were, playing our gigs and stuff. And our oldest brother, Jed, he turned 18 and he didn't want to be in the band anymore. And we were all, we weren't making a living off of playing music, not 100%. My brother Jed ended up getting a logging job. And, as younger brothers do, we saw, hey, this guy's making money. This is crazy. I guess I need money too. So so we all kind of joined him in the logging woods, and then we would live on the logging site and trailers and whatnot for most of the time. So I ended up doing that for a while, and our brother Matt ended up picking up the guitar, filling the guitar role, which was cool. He's normally a fiddle player, and he's left-handed, so he learned to play a right-handed guitar and did a great job of it. Um, we did that for a while. My parents ended up getting divorced, and we all kind of my dad and all of us kids, we went out to California and we just busked and lived in a van. It was very like Captain Fantastic style. Um, like childhood, and we ended up coming back, and my dad bought this other property in a town called Exland, Wisconsin, which is about 40 miles from Dairyland. And my brothers Matt and Shad and myself, we ended up going out to California, and we ended up busking on the West Coast quite a bit for about 6 to 8 months. And we came back from there and went back to working in the logging woods. And my brother Shad and I got the only thing we knew how to do was log, right? Like that's kind of the only thing there was to do where we lived in northern Wisconsin. So we ended up getting a logging job, and we were in a hurry trying to get to work, hit some black ice. We got in this crazy car accident. We both almost died. We rolled this old truck like 8 times
Oh
down
my
a
gosh.
50-foot embankment. And anyway, it was just this crazy, crazy scene. And we got out of that, and we it took like a year and a half to come back from that because we were pretty messed up from that whole scene. And
There's never a good time. I apologize, but now we got to take a quick breather for a message from our sponsor.
One, two. It's a big purchase, it's a big deal. Trevor Shaw knows exactly how you feel for refinance or a new home. Trevor Shaw will help you get your loan. Trevor Shaw will help you get your loan.
Hello, I'm Trevor Shaw. I'm not just a bluegrass aficionado, I'm a bluegrass aficionado that's a mortgage loan officer at Chat Mortgage in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'd be honored for the opportunity to help you get your residential mortgage loan or refinance anywhere in Tennessee, Georgia, or Colorado. From veterans using their hard-earned benefits to first-time home buyers needing down payment assistance to retirees finally getting the home they've always dreamed of. Call or text me today at 864-50-T-SHAW. That's 864-50-T-SHAW.
It's a big purchase, it's a big deal. Trevor Shaw knows exactly how you feel for refinance or a new home. Trevor Shaw will help you get your loan. Trevor Shaw will help you get your loan.
Chat Mortgage is powered by Almeida Mortgage Corporation, NMLS number 271603. Chat Mortgage is located at 6650 East Brainerd Road, Suite 208 in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Phone number 423-591-9801. Trevor Shaw, NMLS number 929-381.
after that, my brother Shad started playing in these country bands, and I was kind of, following him around like a puppy dog, like, hey, I want to play in this band too. And that eventually kind of fizzled out. We kind of realized like there's not much here. My brother Shad ended up moving to Nashville, and I moved up to a family friend inherited some property in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, a little town called Scandia outside of Marquette. And I was just living with my dad, but I was, 19 years old, and I wasn't doing much with my life. And this family friend, Jim Kublin, was like, "Hey, why don't you come up here? I'm gonna start running some sled dogs. I could use some help getting this farm in shape. There's a whole bunch of stuff to do." I was a pretty handy kid, so he's like, "Why don't you come up here, stay with me for a while, figure out what that's like." So I ended up going up there, and I ended up helping him train these sled dogs, which was a pretty cool experience. It's not something that a lot of people get to do. That was definitely a really neat experience. But I wasn't really playing music during this. I ran the sled dogs. I got a job at a little local hardware store. Started working at this hardware store, and there was just nobody really to play with. I knew a couple of people up there from when we played up there when we were kids, and I would play like the occasional Red Lion Lounge type gig, like hotel lounge type gig, but nothing really going on musically at all. And at a certain point when I was around 21, 22 years old, something like that, I ended up moving back down to Wisconsin, and I ended up taking this job working on railroad bridges for this company called Osmos Wood Preserving. And I did that for about 3.5 years. Again, not even playing music. I didn't even, I think I carried a mandolin around with me, but if I picked it up more than 20 times in those 3.5 years. I'd be surprised. I just kind of didn't have much interest in it, and there was nobody really to play with, so I just I just didn't play music. I just worked on railroad bridges and hung out with my buddies and lived in hotels on the road. And my brother Jed, my oldest brother,
That's
was doing
amazing.
that job. My oldest brother Jed was doing that job too. But I was working out in Oregon and my brother Jed was working in Oklahoma. And this job, like we worked all over. I worked from Florida to Oregon and, up on the East Coast. Anywhere there's railroad bridges, they need repair. So my brother Jed called me up just randomly one day and was like, "Hey, you want to go to Alaska?" I was like, "Yeah, let's go to Alaska." He's like, "All right, I'll be there in 2 days." So we both quit our jobs and we, took whatever money we had and he drove his 1986 Ford pickup from Oklahoma to Oregon, picked me up wherever that was. I can't remember where it was. And we just headed on up to Alaska. And,
That's a
I ended up
dream road
wintering.
trip of mine to go from
It
the States to Alaska on a road trip.
it's pretty epic. We did it in 5 days, 5 long days of driving. But it was amazing, man. Like there's no place. I've been a lot of places I've been everywhere in the States and a lot of Canada at this point, and there's just no I can't think of one place I've ever been that compares to Alaska. Just it's an amazing spot. My brother Jed, he
And
he
can you
left
make it
there
in
for
a
like a
normal
year and a half.
vehicle? I mean, is it enough paved roads or drivable roads? You don't need a special 4x4. You can just, a
No,
normal
no, we
vehicle can
took
make
a
it.
we took a yeah, we took a two-wheel drive Ford pickup. Yeah, there were no issues, and I'm sure the roads have gotten a lot better since 1999. So, yeah,
Wow.
no issues there. I mean, that's just going to Anchorage. I mean, there's tons of places that if you go farther north, I'm sure you get into some dicier stuff. But for the trip to Anchorage, yeah, or Denali even, you can just two-wheel drive is fine. But
That's
I was
amazing.
living up in Alaska and I was just kind of, I wasn't really playing any music at the time. I don't even think I had a mandolin at the time.
Oh,
But I remember going to like one jam session there. But I just, I was working in warehouses and just whatever I could find. I didn't have any education. So the only jobs I could do is manual labor jobs, right? So kind of doing that for a while. And I got to this point where I was like, wow, what the hell am I going to do with my life? I'm like 24, 25 years old. I gotta get my shit together here. I gotta figure something out. And I got it in my head that I wanted to join the military. And, it was partly, people that I was working with. I worked with this old vet, and it just sounded so romantic, this whole life of, special forces. And I had it completely romanticized in my mind. And I
well,
went
if
to
you
go
spend a
sign
lot of
up.
time in isolation, yeah, growing up, I guess excitement, see the world, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's why a lot of people join the military, right? It's they get amped up about it, and they're only way people can afford to go to college.
True.
Um, but I was all excited for it, and I ended up signing up. Ended up like signing up, and my dad and my brother Shad and all of my brothers just started calling me like, "Hey, man, you should rethink this. You should rethink this." It's kind of like, "Do you really want to do this? Why don't you give music another try?" And they ended up talking me into it. And by that time, Shad had been living in Nashville for, I don't know, 7, 8 years, something
And
like
you
that. I
haven't
think
been
he
playing a
moved there.
mandolin in years at this point.
No, not really. Not much, right? I was just like, well, okay, go to Iraq and get killed or go to Nashville. So I common sense won out, and I ended up just buying a plane ticket down to Nashville, and Shad had an old Kentucky mandolin around the house, and I started. going around following him around like a puppy dog. He was entrenched in the scene. So the first jam I went to, Mac Wiseman was holding court, and Dell was there, and Dell's boys, and Mike Bubb, and Dave Harvey, and just all these people that I was like, I didn't even know who the hell they were, really. I knew Del McCurry and Mac Wiseman because of my dad, but I didn't really know anything else about the scene, what was going on. But there was a woman at that jam named Kim Fox who what I remember about that jam is I knew Dave Harvey, and I don't know if you know who Dave Harvey is, but
Nope.
mandolin player, great mandolin player who played with Larry Sparks. He's on like the classic Larry Sparks recordings,
Awesome.
like Blue Virginia Blues. It's like the best freaking mandolin kickoff ever. Anyway, and I remember meeting him when I was a little kid at a festival in Minnesota, and he was like, "Jesse, hey man, been a long time. You want to pick one?" And he played Roanoke, and he played it so damn fast I couldn't even keep up. I just like
Find
struggling
that hard to
along this jam.
believe.
Yeah, shocking.
You're one of the fastest
Um,
out there, my friend.
well, I wasn't at that time, but we played this, and this woman, Kim Fox, she was sitting next to me, and she was just slinging rhythm on the guitar, just really laying into it. She's from freaking upstate New York, so we had this Yankeedom in common, and she just introduced herself. Hey, I'm Kim. Blah blah blah. We were talking for a minute and played a couple more tunes. She was like, "Listen, I'm doing this tour to Canada. Would you want to come to Canada for 2 weeks and play all these dates? We're trying to find a mandolin player for this." And I was like, "Hell yeah. First week in Nashville, I get a gig? Yeah, sure, why not?"
Music City.
So yeah, that was kind of my introduction to the Nashville scene, and I just realized when I moved there that I really better get to work here and learn to play this music, because I was never into like traditional bluegrass. I was a newgrass revival guy. That was my whole thing. Sam Bush, once I found newgrass revival and Sam Bush, traditional bluegrass took a way back seat. I was just excited by that. But I got more entrenched in the scene, and Kim was a great person to meet because she knew everybody else. She'd been around for a long time and had her own festival up in upstate New York. And anyway, it just led to connection after connection after connection, and led to Ronnie Bowman, playing with Ronnie Bowman for a good long while, a couple of years, and then Andy Hall and Jeremy Garrett were involved in that. So that was kind of my introduction to those guys in the String Dusters. And when you live in Nashville within that music community, there's just connection after connection after connection, which I was reminded of at IBMA, because it's like I haven't seen there's Darren Shoemaker. Holy shit, I haven't seen him in 12 years. And it's like, or 20 years. I don't even know how long it's been. And it's just like, Jesse, how you doing? It's just like this big family, even no matter how outside you are of the family, you're still welcomed back in. It's actually a pretty cool thing. That was always been one of my favorite things about that community. And one of my favorite things about going down to IBMA this year was just like, it's kind of like you never left. It's like a big family reunion. Hey, what are you doing? What's going on, man? It's just this crazy thing that I've never really found in any other community. So
Well, I
that's
can agree
cool.
with that, and especially the first thing I noticed about IBMA within minutes of arriving. Hey, there's Chris Jones. Hey, there's Jesse Cobb. Hey, there's Becky Buller, and before you knew it, like within an hour, it just became commonplace. Oh, there's Billy Strings walking by.
I
It
mean,
was
where
wild.
else? I mean, Billy Strings he's like the Mick Jagger of bluegrass, right? It's like you're never gonna see Mick Jagger just hanging out at a rock convention.
No,
You know what I mean? It's such a unique thing. Like the bluegrass world is such a unique. It's a very unique experience that I think a lot of people should. I don't want to invite everybody to it, but it's a really cool scene because because of that, because of the accessibility of it. And all you really need to be part of the scene is enough talent to keep up with everybody else, which is a really cool thing.
Truly,
I'm
truly
making some
outstanding.
coffee.
Oh, please, yeah. It's early
Yeah.
where you're at. You're on far Western time.
Yes. But feel free to keep I'll probably talk forever, Trevor. So if you got any
Well,
other questions, you better get them
oh
in.
no, I mean I'm loving it. This is exactly what it's all about. Learning a little bit more about the behind the scenes. So, you had started with the Dusters in 2006. You had mentioned Andy Hall and Jeremy Garrett, and uh, is the initial core. Is IBMA responsible for introducing the initial core, the String Dusters? Of course, back then you also had Chris Eldridge, and uh, yeah, talk about kind of the beginning of the Dusters and your experience there.
To me, the beginning of the String Dusters, and I know there was the Wheelhouse Band, and well, I can't remember the other name. Like Chris Pandolfi and Chris Eldridge and Andy Hall were involved in some projects before all of
Got a
that. Yeah, my introduction to the String Dusters and my experience in the start of it was IBMA in 2000. It was either 2005 or 2006. Our first showcases there, where it was just this, we kind of came in and we were this new modern type of band that we had songs that we had been working on. I think we made like a 5-song EP. I imagine you probably have that somewhere, if I know Trevor. But
You
we
do.
we made a little
You are
EP.
correct.
I figured you probably did. Um, we made this EP and we just went and found as many showcases as we possibly could. I can't remember if we were an official showcase act or not. I don't remember that. Mm. But IBMA was a lot smaller then, It was held in Nashville, and it just seemed way smaller than it is today. So it was just kind of, a bunch of buddies getting together, and but it introduced us to a ton of festival people, and we kind of went over and made a bit of a splash there, and by the time we came out of there, we had offers for record contracts and booking agents wanting to do something. I assume that's because they saw some potential in the project being something that managers and labels don't get involved unless there's money to be made, right? No offense to the
The
industry.
illustrious money in bluegrass, right?
Yes, well, we can't even really say that anymore with the advent of where Billy Strings has brought it to, like it's funny, people always say, "Oh, there ain't no money in bluegrass," but let's uh let's talk to the guy who's playing to 10,000 people every night. You know what I mean? Like there is there is the opportunity for it. I just think you just got to have the right thing, which and it's got to be the right time. There's been times before with the O Brothers stuff and Nickel Creek that these people were able to teams of people were really able to capitalize on what was going on in the general flow of society. And I think we're hitting like the sweetest spot that's ever been right now. And what Billy has brought, the recognition that he's brought to bluegrass as a whole is just like it's incomprehensible. It's beyond anything I've ever seen, and it's well deserved. Not trying to take anything. Billy's freaking amazing. It's just I never thought I'd see a guy playing stadiums, playing Bridgestone Arena 2 nights in a row. It's just like, what the hell? He's playing more traditional bluegrass than any band out there, including the traditional bands,
Yes.
and it blows my mind.
Well, I was lucky enough to score Billy Strings tickets on the Wednesday during IBMA, and it's the first time I've seen him in a while in a smaller venue, a 1,500 person venue, and it was nuts to butts, to be polite. I mean, you literally had strangers touching you in multiple places the entire evening, and it was such a dramatic contrast to go from there to one of the ballrooms where there might be 25 people with, tons of empty seats in between. To have that immediate contrast back to back was just truly mind bending, that this is both bluegrass and bluegrass at its best at the same time.
I saw Billy sit in with Junior Sisk and saw the keynote address, which I thought was fantastic. Yeah, that just the way he delivered that address and talked about inclusion and all this stuff. I remember talking to Jeff Austin and guys in more progressive bands who were just like, look at what we're doing. At the time, Yonder Mountain was the biggest freaking thing in bluegrass back in 2009, 10. They were huge. Nothing like what
Absolutely.
Billy has become. But they were a huge band. They were, selling 1,000 tickets, and nobody else was selling 1,000 tickets. And those guys never got any recognition, never got any love from IBMA. I believe I understand the reasoning why, and I think that's in the ability, in the ability to perform, which I don't know if you I think you would understand this. Your business card says you are a bluegrass enthusiast, and I believe it wholeheartedly. But you can tell the difference between um a Jake Workman type flat picker and a hippie jam band flat picker, right?
Absolutely.
And to me there's a big difference, and that seems to be the reason why those guys were never really accepted in the thing, was the closed-minded, well, if you can't do it like Tony Rice did, then rah, 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 and it's just this kind of mental state that seems like that's kind of softening, which I think is good for a lot of reasons. I think that's good, but it's still, even if you're playing kind of hippie jam grass, there's still so much talent involved in that. It's just, I really like that it's IBMA and bluegrass in general has become more kind of inclusive of other sounds, other things. That's what's got to happen. It's the traditional, what is, that ain't bluegrass, blah 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 blah. I didn't hear nearly as much of that as I did last time I was at IBMA, and I'm really glad to see that, because a rising tide floats all ships, or however the saying goes,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So
Rises all ships for sure.
That's Billy's doing that for everybody, and he's doing it in the best way he knows how. And it's an honest, absolute love for bluegrass music that brings him there. It's not just placating because he wants something from Dell. He doesn't doesn't need anything from Dell. He's selling out Bridgestone Arena. He just likes singing with Dell, and who the hell doesn't? You
They
know.
can't hold that against him. Kind of my path in bluegrass. Jeff Austin was the first mandolin player I ever heard play that I enjoyed, and it was really maybe 6 months later where I first came across the Dusters, and of course you were playing mandolin there, and just blew my mind. It was a whole new, unexpected sound. I came from, I guess, classic rock, and was raised in a popular folk music family, and I hated stringed instruments. The Kingston Trio makes my ears bleed. But that was, what my father's jam was. And so Yonder was my gateway into bluegrass. And then, of course, immediately afterwards, the Dusters expanded my horizons dramatically and was very progressive, hence the name T. Shaw's Progressive Bluegrass. But really, in the last 5 years, especially since COVID, And I definitely have to owe Billy a little bit of this. I've dug much deeper in the traditional catalog, whether that's Bill Monroe or Flatt and Scruggs, all of the founding fathers. I had zero appreciation for until the last 5 years, and I probably owe a lot of that to Billy.
I think that's just a natural thing, you know. It was the Grateful Dead that kind of led, you know, a guy like Andy Falco. It was the Grateful Dead that led him to the older bluegrass, right? And I think Billy's doing that for this next generation of people, and it's, you know, there's a little bit of, I'm sure, as everything bluegrass is, there's some controversy involved in it, right? But I really think that's gonna happen with a lot of younger people because Billy's going out there, he's playing his original stuff with the big distorted guitar solos and extended jams and stuff, but then he's also playing White Dove for an encore, like stripped down on one mic, and it's like people are loving it, and it's
Yes.
great. I love that they're loving it. They're not thinking like, oh, I wish he'd get back out the jam stuff. They're super into it from what I can see anyway, you know? So that's
You never
cool.
thought
I think
25,000 people get excited to hear a Doc Watson song.
yeah, I never I mean it never happened when Doc was doing it.
Well, I want to make sure that we at least address. So you had an amazing time with Dusters, and leading up until 2011, kind of the gorilla in the room or the elephant in the room, so to speak. You announced on, I believe, with social media, your departure of the Dusters October 5th, 2011, citing mental and physical stress and touring being away from his family as the reasons for your exit. But it doesn't take a genius to do the math. That was 4 days before the Festi Experience, the infamous String Dusters annual festival. Odd timing, to say the least. And then immediately afterwards, on the 11th of October, the We'll Do It Live album was released. And anybody who purchased the pre-sale, the We'll Do It Live album was autographed by all the band members, but your autograph was absent. So just kind of doing the math, I have a feeling there's a little more to it than just mental health. I had a lot of debate, deliberation if I was going to make this one long episode or break it up into two, and just decided the conversation that Jesse and I are about to get into is worthy of its own focus and conversation. So come back next week. I'm going to release the episode 1 week from today, anywhere you get your podcasts. And I can't thank you enough for supporting T. Shaw's Progressive Bluegrass. I'm Trevor Shaw. It's been an honor to share this with you. So glad, grateful for my listeners. Just a reminder, I am a mortgage lender. You've heard the jingle. It's catchy. But I can help anybody get a mortgage in Tennessee, Colorado, or Georgia in any particular order, anywhere in those 3 states, from border to border. Be happy to help you out. Be happy to talk about it. Give me a call, 864-50-T-SHAW. Make sure to come back next week where we pick up this conversation with Jesse Cobb. And now a message from our sponsor. Thanks again.
1, 2. It's a big purchase, it's a big deal. Trevor Shaw knows exactly how you feel for refinance or a new home. Trevor Shaw will help you get your loan. Trevor Shaw will help you get your loan.
Hello, I'm Trevor Shaw. I'm not just a bluegrass aficionado. I'm a bluegrass aficionado that's a mortgage loan officer at Chat Mortgage in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'd be honored for the opportunity to help you get your residential mortgage loan or refinance anywhere in Tennessee, Georgia, or Colorado. From veterans using their hard-earned benefits to first-time home buyers needing down payment assistance to retirees finally getting the home they've always dreamed of. Call or text me today at 864-50-T-SHAW. That's 864-50-T-SHAW.
It's a big purchase, it's a big deal. Trevor Shaw knows exactly how you feel for refinance or a new home. Trevor Shaw will help you get your loan. Trevor Shaw will help you get your loan.
Chat Mortgage is powered by Almeida Mortgage Corporation, NMLS number 271603. Chat Mortgage is located at 6650 East Brainerd Road, Suite 208 in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Phone number 423-591-9801. Trevor Shaw, NMLS number 929381.